brings me automatically, because we want to be light-hearted a little bit. The first Indian who became Queen's Counsel had a big reception in Bombay. And the hostess was clapping politely. He came across an American woman. She said, gee, she said, well, I'm a QC too. He's very good. She said, really? Well, I didn't think you had them in America. He said, what do you mean? I'm a quality controller too. And so, because it's a meaningless title, very few people know what it means. But anyway, I am, for my sins, Queen's Counsel, and I do criminal cases. I'm interested in engaging with you on the impact of the media. Because regardless of what those fantastic speakers spoke, I am actually more optimistic than pessimistic. Frankly, I look at it because I'm a practical lawyer, I'm not a theoretician. I don't care about whether how many inches the Israelis have put in the press, how many thousand bloggers they have. I don't care. Because I go back to the Abraham Lincoln line. You can fool some of the people some of the time, but you can't fool all people all the time. And I'll tell you for why. For the first time in modern history, there are Israeli generals who are actually frightened to land on UK soil. One actually packed his bags, was because of Arab talk before the time. He was actually put on a plane, on an armed plane, kept on an armed plane despite the heat because there was no air conditioning, and bundled back into Tel Aviv without bombs or anything. So all I'm saying to you, despite all the fantastic Israeli oil machines, bloggers who speak Ukrainian, which is very helpful for Whitehall, and the media coverage, which is important to monitor. But my point is, what's the impact? They are losing the battle. Because the real battle now is being waged, not by firing bullets. The real battle is being waged as we speak in the courts, in the legal corridors of Europe. Because of a principle, I'm not going to bore you with details, so far I've kept your smiles. There's something called universal jurisdiction, which is simply the law which was enacted to pursue Nazis, quite right, in the Second World War. And as Makram said, I pioneered the concept that the law that is on United Kingdom statute books actually applies to all war criminals. And so we tried many years back the prosecution of Israeli war criminals. My first case, I was a young lawyer, very young, much younger than now, no gray hair, no beard, no tummy, it was wonderful. And I was approached by a big firm of solicitors called Bernberg. And they had an incredible case. They had officers who had served in the British Army and the British Palestine police, all trimmed. It was like a movie film, it's more like watching Lawrence of Arabia. And they all came in, they wanted to see if there was a legal way to arrest, at the time, Yitzhak Shamir, who was making his first visit. For those of you who may not know, Yitzhak Shamir, some of you know, some of you may not know. Shamir was an Israeli prime minister, but he used to be the leader of one of the Israeli terror groups. Thank you. And he had admitted killing actually Lord Moyne, who was what to do? I mean, can you imagine if he actually issued the British warrant and some policeman going down to Claridge and saying, oh, excuse me, sir, or you, Mr. Shamir, otherwise known as Mr. Yaponski, I arrest you in the name of the law. He'll be killed by Israeli servicemen. You could see the magistrate was an absolute panic. But we set the precedent. We didn't get the warrant, but we set the procedure in motion.
Why did you not get it?
Too technical now, and it's too hot. But it's too technical. Trust me, it's too technical. The next attempt was to try to get Sharon. Again, that failed because there was, again, technical arguments which were very strong. Our most serious attempt was the attempt to arrest General Mofaz, and my clients then were, you may know them, the English family, the Handels, whose son was murdered by an Israeli soldier in Gaza. Now, the Handels were a middle-class English family, completely apolitical. No involvement in politics, and you know them. Wonderful middle-class father solicitor, mother teacher, whatever, absolutely wonderful family. The boy goes down, he's a photojournalist, and gets sniped at by Israelis. And this middle-class white family suddenly goes down because they believe the Israeli media that Israel is a democracy, everybody eats honey and milk, everybody's happy, we have great people and all this stuff, so they go and buy it. But look and behold, this wonderful English solicitor gets freaked out because they lie, and he catches them in lies. I mean, he's not a criminal solicitor, they catch them. And to cut a long story short, we actually, it was the nearest we ever got to issuing the warrant. The magistrate ruled against the issuance of the warrant because, wrongly, he ruled that the General Mofaz enjoys immunity because he was Minister of Defense at the time. Now, again, this is a technical issue, worship immunity, but we did not appeal it. But what is significant, and this is where the media is very important, the magistrate accepted that there was evidence linking the general to the killing by a soldier. But that is a very important legal step. And so I revert back to my argument, which I started with, is regardless of however much their machine is well-oiled, and they have fantastic spokespersons with every dialect on the earth, they cannot get rid of the hard facts. And the battle that is being fought currently is, despite the media, and that's my discussion once we've had the break, and if anybody wants to test this question, is regardless of their campaign, which is very well oiled, I submit that they actually failed and will continue to fail because there is a growing public opinion, certainly in the United Kingdom and in many sections of Europe, where there is anger actually, that the Israelis are getting away with murder. And it is my firm view that the media, with the great effort of Maher and Makram and Sharif and other people, have actually have neutralized the campaign, because the reality of the situation, when I go to court now and present a case of this nature, where 20 years ago people have said, what the hell are you on about? People now are willing to accept that the Israeli side is not telling the truth. And that, for me, is a phenomenal achievement. Because despite the, I mean, of course, as a man who's originally an Arab, I can be allowed to criticize my people very easily. We have Telugu spokespersons. You have somebody who can hardly speak English, goes on the international media. But why? Why do we need to choose such a subject? It's an outrage. When you have got the media, the split second, the soundbite. But that's another story. It's another debate for Nuruddin, maybe we can enter. But may I just simply finish on 2 points? I personally believe the media has a very important role to play. I tell you why. It has an important role in creating the proper climate for pursuing the legal process. Many of you may not remember, but some of you may have read, about 20 years ago there was a major IRA campaign. I was one of the barristers who defended every principal Irish case in England. Now, these cases, people were found guilty and they got 3 life sentences due to spend 40 years. But in fact, a lot of these guys were found guilty because of the reaction of the jury to a bombing campaign on British people. But because the lawyers campaigned, and because the press took over the mantle of the lawyers, 16 years later, I know 16 years is too long, but 16 years later, the Court of Appeal was obliged to quash the conviction of people like the Birmingham 6, the Guildford 4, and that is because the press, working with the lawyers, actually managed to create the climate where it was proper to quash the convictions even of people who have been convicted of terrorism on British soil. So therefore, I come out with, I hope, an optimistic message, not doom and gloom, because I'm fed up with doom and gloom. We must come up and say to ourselves, this Israeli fantastically oiled machine actually cannot deliver, because the facts speak for themselves. And what it needs is these courageous media people, like I'm surrounded with on this table, to actually demystify and use very simple language. There is no need to show the picture of a burnt-up baby, frankly, because the West recoils from this shock. Just like if you're raising funds for Ethiopia, you don't need to show a baby with the belly coming out. You can do it in a much more clever way. And all I'm saying, first of all, thanks to Nuruddin and his group of people for having this debate today. But I think it's very important to have a positive image to come out from this case, to say there are bad images which are being portrayed by the Israelis, but I can tell you, and even the Times, which is not renowned for its support for the Palestinian case, published in the major pages of its newspaper the change of Israeli story about the use of the phosphorus bombs. The first denial, what are you saying? We don't use this, and then it came down, well, actually, maybe the other one. So, I mean, the Times was absolutely against it. So all I'm saying, that reality is more powerful than any spin that the Israelis can come up with. And therefore, I am heartened to say that we are in an era where those who are committing severe crimes will be prosecuted. Thank you for your attention. Sorry if I trespassed. Thank you.